Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is March the 15th, 2025. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Today has been pretty low key for a Saturday so far, which we love. A little cloudy, a little rainy, but overall solid, at least over here in Ohio. We're going to get to some bad weather, actually, just at the top of the news. But overall today has been solid. I will say I made that quip about, I've been sleeping better for the most part since we worked out, blah, 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 yada. Well, fuck that, because I woke up again at 4 something, like 4 hours of sleep. I was like, dang it, god dang it. But luckily I was able to go back to sleep, so just a little bit of a later start. But overall, solid morning. We woke up, went to the gym. Gym was fine. Solid effort. We love it. I will say, though, it seems like we've kind of put on some pounds again. We're hanging out around like, the 211, range, 210, 211, whatever. And so it goes. I kind of got a little, like, I'm sticking to the diet. We're more or less still chicken and rice. Though I will say I forgot to mention couple days ago, I had a little girl dinner. Had a little bit of Rally's fries out the air fryer. That was really it. But I mean, hey, that's really not exactly what I should have been eating. But that being said, I just didn't want to cook a whole, rice and chicken situation, even though it's not hard. It just felt like it was a little bit much for muchness, and fries just hit. And they were good, so no complaints. But last night, I made my chicken and rice meal. Only I added a little bit of pesto and a little bit of cheese. So I'm almost thinking that most likely those extra little ingredients might have hurt me a little bit there. But who knows? It's a whole culmination of things, that compiles into, why you weigh that day or what you weigh that day, whether you hit a calorie deficit, all that, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But, not too discouraged about it. I really don't hate being around this weight. I think it's just I'm an impatient person, and I always want to see progress every day. Forward, 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 forward. So it can definitely feel discouraging, but I try not to be discouraged about it. Right. So yeah, a little bit of food corner there, a little past and present. Let's go ahead and do our startup and get into some news, shall we? All right. Our first story comes from CBS News. Tornado threat moves to southern U.S. after severe storms kill at least 19, unleashes winds and fans wildfires. So, all kinds of weather to kind of talk about just from this one article. The threat of tornadoes in parts of the U.S. proved deadly as whipping winds moved east into Mississippi Valley and deep south on Saturday, causing at least 19 fatalities in 4 states, injuries, and widespread damage. I know they mentioned Mississippi, I believe Missouri. Let's see, let's scroll ahead a bit here. Oklahoma and Arkansas. Between the four, there were 19 people killed. Just due to weather-related stuff, either here nor there. Also in Texas, officials said 4 people died after weather-related fatalities some during car crashes and in the midst of a dust storm. Let's see, scrolling ahead a little bit more. I think we can get to the fire portion. Actually, they mention Georgia as well. Wildfires in the southern plains threatened to spread rapidly amid warm, dry weather and strong winds, and evacuations were ordered Friday for some communities in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and New Mexico. And then scrolling ahead, even past wildfires, it looks like we have blizzard warnings as well. The National Weather Service issued blizzard warnings for parts of far western Minnesota and far eastern South Dakota starting early Saturday. Snow accumulations of 3 to 6 inches were expected, with up to a foot possible. Winds gusting to 60 miles per hour were expected to cause whiteout conditions. So all kinds of weather everywhere, but mainly kind of coming out of the south. Like I said, in Ohio, I know we got a little bit of stormy weather, but it hasn't been too crazy. So yeah, I figured we start off with the weather update, just kind of talk about some stuff going on. Obviously, to condolences to the families, who've lost family members, either going through injuries, loss of property, stuff like that. I know all that shit's really rough and can seem very impossible to deal with, and it's really hard to pick up the pieces after something like that just happens, just literally just drops on you. But we move and we do the best we can. But yeah, let's move on to our next story from USA Today. Judge blocks Louisiana's first nitrogen gas execution over possible pain and terror. A federal judge on Tuesday temporarily blocked what was to be Louisiana's first execution by nitrogen gas, ruling that the largely untested method could cause an inmate pain and terror. Chief District Judge Shelley Dick's ruling came just 1 week before Jesse Hoffman, 46, was set to be executed by nitrogen gas at the Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola on March 18th for the kidnapping, rape, and murder of 28-year-old accounting executive Molly Elliott in 1996. Now, they do go through the details of her murder and, assault. You can read the details if you'd like. I'm really not trying to get into the guts of them. It's very cruel and depraved what he did. He tries to deny it and play it down like as if it was some kind of consensual accident that happened in some way, shape, or form. But I'm just not hearing that or entertaining that personally. That all being said, y'all know how I feel about the death penalty. It can be as cruel and brutal and depraved as whatever, but I still don't think that as a modern society, we should just be saying, hey, we're going to gas you to death. We're going to pump you full of drugs that we, aren't going to tell you exactly, what they're doing or, how bad this is. And, or we're going to shoot you in the chest or fry you like a piece of chicken. We already have burying a person alive for the rest of their life. I feel like that is brutal enough. But that being said, I understand why we do have these conversations, why, there's a part of America, there's a part of many people in the world that feel like, hey, no, we have to have this eye for an eye. It's the only way we have some sense of balance or whatever, or, there's some sense of closure because this person has faced some sense of justice that is that capital, that, I don't know, brutal. Anyway. Only 4 inmates have been executed with nitrogen gas in U.S. history, all in Alabama last year and this year. All of the inmates in that state chose nitrogen gas over lethal injection and the electric chair, while Louisiana made the decision to execute Hoffman using nitrogen gas after experiencing difficulties obtaining drugs for lethal injection, and because the state has no readily available electric chair, Dick said in her ruling. Hoffman has showed a substantial likelihood of proving that nitrogen gas executions violate the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment, Dick wrote. Just kind of talking about some of the how the sausage is made, so to speak. Witnesses observed the inmates' bodies writhing under their restraints, vigorously convulsing and shaking for 4 minutes, heaving, spitting, and a conscious struggling for life. Essentially implying and saying that it's like, yeah, this isn't some clean and immediate, solution. There's nothing humane about this. You are making most likely the person's last, minutes, seconds of life as agonizing as possible. And once again, I'm sure there are people out there who are like, yeah, good, great. For what this person did, they deserve that. But once again, I buck against that. I'm not for that. I think that is depraved and unusual for us as Americans to be like, wanting this, supporting this, voting for people who want to institute and keep this a thing. But I did want to scroll further on because I know not just with Hoffman, there's been other cases I guess I wanted to talk about. The U.S. executed 6 inmates this year as of Tuesday, including the firing squad of Brad Keith Sigmund in South Carolina. We covered that on Friday. On Thursday, Texas had been set to execute David Leonard Wood by lethal injection in the so-called Desert Killer serial case involving the murder of 6 women and girls in El Paso in 1987. Arizona is set to execute Aaron Gunches by lethal injection on Monday in back-to-back executions Thursday. Oklahoma plans to execute Wendell Grissom, and Florida plans to execute Edward Thomas James, both by lethal injection. I know the beat's going to keep going on in that way, in that regard. But yeah, I just, these will always rub me wrong. They just don't feel right. And I know people will always say, well, look at what this person did. Look how fucked up. Look how evil. And it's like, yeah, I know. But let's not even talk about the times where, you actually go through it and it's like, hey, we actually got the wrong guy. Actually, like we have more evidence, time has proven, hey, this person shouldn't even be here. But that aside, I just don't think that we as humans should be involved in making this process of saying, oh, well, you took a life, you took multiple lives, you did something very evil and fucked, we're going to take your life. I just think that we should be past that as people. But, what can you do? Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about crackers. From Fox 8. Recall. Crackers sold at Walmart Giant Eagle. Also, shout out to my homie. He actually sent me this story, and I was like, damn, this is perfect. But also, I mean, what are we going to... And you have to understand, oyster crackers, they're pretty important in Cincinnati. They're pretty important in Ohio. How are you going to make your three-way without some oyster crackers on the side? Or, to mix in. It's not a full three-way then. You're not really accomplishing the whole vibe, It's not going to hit the same. An Ohio company is recalling 15,000 cases of oyster crackers that might be contaminated by metal. Here we go again. Metal in the food again. Sheer Foods of Massillon, or we're going to say Massillon, issued a voluntary recall for crackers sold across the U.S. under store labels at Walmart, Target, and Giant Eagle. The crackers may be contaminated with stainless steel wire, which led the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to issue a Class 2 level classification. Level 2 means exposure may cause temporary or medically reversible adverse health consequences. They list over 20 states that are potentially involved in this recall. So just be very mindful if you've bought, any crackers, not just oyster crackers. Check out this recall. You can always hit the link in the article, see if you might be involved. Obviously, throw those things out or take them back. Get your money or some kind of exchange. I don't know, but yeah, don't eat those crackers because you might become a little heavy metal and not a cool Super Smash Brothers way. Anyway, let's close out with some coffee. We went from crackers to coffee, but before we do that, let's take our last break and we'll close it out. But speaking of coffee, I feel like I've been buying less, like coffee. Like I've been going to Scooters less. My local little coffee shops. I mean, the times are getting tight, man. You just never know. I'm already spending a lot at the grocery store as is. So I'm kind of just making it at home, especially too because I'm feeling like I'm getting my espresso down pat in terms of how much I should be adding. It's not really fucking up the taste. It's nice. So, coffee at home has kind of been the move. But, we're still drinking them energy drinks. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. From CNN. Starbucks ordered to pay $50 million to delivery driver burned by hot beverage. Oh, excuse me. A jury in California on Friday... bear with me. Ordered Starbucks to pay $50 million in damages to a delivery driver who was severely burned by an improperly secured lid on hot beverages. Michael Garcia was picking up drinks at a drive-thru in Los Angeles when he suffered severe burns, disfigurement, and debilitating nerve damage to his genitals when hot drinks ultimately spilled onto his lap, according to the lawsuit filed in California Superior Court in 2020. The lawsuit accused Starbucks of breaching its duty of care by failing to secure the lid. Michael Parker, Garcia's lawyer, said his client was picking up 3 beverages and one of the hot drinks wasn't fully pushed into the container. When the barista handed Garcia the order, a drink fell out of the container and onto Garcia. Garcia's damages included physical pain, mental anguish, loss of enjoyment of life, humiliation, inconvenience, grief, disfigurement, physical impairment, anxiety, and emotional distress, according to a recording of the verdict from Courtroom View Network. Starbucks says it plans to appeal the verdict. They got a little quote here, but whatever. I don't really feel like reading it. Now, it's one of those things where, we've covered cases like this before. There's the iconic 1994 lawsuit where a woman, won a lot of money, nearly $3 million for the burns that she suffered. And I remember, just like in all these cases, when you initially hear it, you go, man, this sounds almost a little far-fetched. But then you see the pictures, usually. That's usually what winds up, kind of sealing the deal here. And you go, oh, no, yeah, give that person their money. Like, this is fucked up. And in this situation, okay, maybe the drink, it's not a matter, oh, the drinks are too hot. It was, this is excessive. But yeah, it is that lack of care that is technically on the onus of the company. And now this delivery driver, they got a lap full of hot coffee and not in a fun, sexy way. You know what I mean? So, I definitely tend to, stand with the plaintiffs here, the victims here, and saying, yeah, good that you're going to get your bag. Good that you're going to get some fucking payola for having to go through this shit. And as a person who has DoorDash before, I am very sympathetic. I remember Starbucks runs were some of my least favorites. I would always clock them. And if I was going to do them, I would definitely try to make sure that I knew the order wasn't going to be crazy. Like, we're talking 1-2 beverages tops, because you just don't want to be riding around with some loose container, even if it is secure as hell. Like, it's just so hard to transport. And maybe people are like, hosh posh, whatever. But, you try it. You having a whole container in your car, and you hope it's going to be secure. You hope it's going to make it and hold and not spill and not get knocked over by some turn or something. And shit, I've even had issues where I make it all the way to a place and I get there, and the next thing I know, as I'm placing it, it just falls over. It just spills, and the shame you feel in those moments. It's so frustrating, so definitely make sure, tip your drivers, tip your dashers if you're still using that stuff, by all means. And, be careful out there, be aware, on both sides of the counter, you know what I mean? Because you don't want to have a hot coffee in your lap. And we'll leave it at that. Anyway, that'll be the episode for today. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/IsaiahNews. Become a newsie today. Free ways to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube. Follow on TikTok. Follow on Spotify. Or even Apple Podcasts, whatever. Leave some 5 stars. Sharing is caring. Leave a like. Leave a cool comment. But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.